the waiting room. So I'll have you do that from here on out. And we'll go ahead and start. Welcome everybody to our August RUC General Meeting. We're excited you're here. I pulled up, can you guys see my screen? Okay, so I just pulled up our calendar of events. We tried to list things that may be applicable to the rural chambers on here, just everything, but I bolded the things that we are either sponsoring or really encourage everybody to get to. Everything's awesome on this list, but we have our Rural Utah Chamber Coalition Quarterly Training coming up on August 22nd. It's Chamber Foundations, but that'll just give rural chambers a bunch of information on just the well, you think it would be simple everyday stuff, but it gets kind of complicated, just like membership and finances and everything. So come to that if you can. I just want to make a special announcement for the September 15th Remote Teams Summit. In rural Utah, of course, we have some remote workers. They're all over, but that's a great thing to attend. And then October 2nd through the 4th, I know we keep telling you guys to come to this. We are getting sponsorships, and so plan on everybody, all the small rural Utah chambers, you're each going to get 2 free tickets to come. And we do have some housing available. So I'm going to send out an email. I don't know if you call it housing, but just some Airbnbs. Sorry about that. Just some Airbnbs that you guys can have access to. So I'm going to kind of start sending information out on that and find out who's going to go so we can get you signed up. And like I said, if you, we have some complimentary or sponsored housing we can get you into Airbnb. So exciting. And then one thing I'm looking really forward to is October 27th. It's going to be half a day on October 27th and November 3rd. It's the Government Affairs Boot Camp. Salt Lake Chamber does that. So, and Ginger's going to talk with us later and she'll tell us a little bit more about that. But great things happening. Again, welcome. And I'm just going to turn, sorry, I got somebody trying to get on this call. Let me turn off my phone and then answer it. Okay. So yeah, welcome. And we're just going to turn the time over to Joel for a minute. He's going to introduce our government liaison.
Thanks, Tricia. Appreciate it. So we have our government liaison with us today, Lisa Roskelly, who's a dear friend of mine and a great advocate for the state of Utah. She currently is working out of Representative Blake Moore's office, and we're just really happy to have her on the call today. So we're going to turn the time over to Lisa. She's going to give us a little update on what she's got going on.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Joel. Joel is like a treasure. So we're also lucky to have him working on our behalf, our collective behalf. So Joel's amazing. It's so good to see everyone and see everybody's fabulous backgrounds. I feel kind of lame. I'm in like my lame office today, but that's okay. I just wanted to give a quick update on what Congressman Moore is working on. And for those of you out there who haven't had the chance to get to know him or meet him, he's a breath of fresh air in politics, but he's also like a whirlwind. Like he is one of those guys that's just like busy all the time, and that's kind of our goal for him, is just to keep him all throughout the district and all around Utah. And so he's doing really great things. For those of you who don't know him, he's in his second term, and he was actually asked to serve on the Ways and Means Committee, which is an incredibly powerful committee in Congress. It's really the most powerful, and he's only the second Utahn to ever be on that committee. And so we're really excited to have him there, because it really is, his whole focus is on the debt and deficit culture in Washington, D.C. And he's like, this is how we're going to fix that. So he's really passionate, and he's working on a lot of good things. I'll just name off a few things, and then if anybody has any questions, we can go from there. But he, as Ways and Means, he's working on small business issues. So he loves the chambers. He loves getting involved with the issues that you're facing and really that Congress can affect to help you grow your business. So he was the sponsor of the Small Business Growth Act, which just passed the Ways and Means within the big economic package, which is a really great thing. He was asked to take the lead on that because of his interest in those issues. And it helps small businesses get more equipment by raising the tax deduction cap. So if you have questions about that, or it's still in its process. Congress is a thoughtful, deliberative process, but it has passed at least out of the Ways and Means and is moving forward. So that's a really good thing. Other things that he's worked on are like the bipartisan fiscal forum. He really is focused on that debt and deficit. He also last year, or during the last Congress, he passed 4 different pieces of legislation, and any other new Republican congressman, the most that any of them passed was 1. So we like to think that he really is just like someone who puts his head down and gets things done. And so that shows in his results. So one of those that he is most proud of is the National Medal of Honor Monument Act. And so that was passed and signed by the president. And now he's working kind of the last legislative step, which is to get it placed as a monument by the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. So he loves to kind of do things that really make an impact, and he's good for raising the flag and saying, hey, this is a problem, but his goal is to get things done, which is what we love about him. So he has a newsletter that he puts out every week. We would love for any of you to sign up for that. You can just go to his Blakemore House website and sign up for that. He puts it out every week. Most of it is written by him. He just is really passionate about communicating, and so it's always interesting to kind of read where his thoughts on things and where he's been and all of those things. So if you have a chance to go onto his website and sign up for that, we'd love to have you do that. And then we have some good town halls coming up and other things that we'll keep you informed on, but we've done really good ones recently, both in Box Elder and Cache County, and worked with those chambers to make sure that he's out and about. So just was in front of the Davis Chamber as well, and his goal is to make sure that businesses know that he's there for them, and then if you're facing any issues, that he wants to know about them. So let us know if we can help. And like Joel said, I'm around. I'm here in the district, and so if you need anything from me, I'm sure they can share my contact information, but I could go in and put it into the chat as well. And I don't always get to join this meeting because I have a conflict that happens every week at the same time. So I try to like pick and choose. So I don't always get to be on this meeting, but I love it when I get to. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you. We appreciate you, Lisa, for being here. So appreciate it. If you haven't had an opportunity to meet Lisa, she's amazing. She's a breath of fresh air, and we just love all the good work she's doing for Congressman Moore. She's been in politics for a long, long time. And so she knows her way around the state on a local state level, as well as the federal level too, as she mentioned with Representative Moore.
That was his way of calling me old, but it's fine.
You're not old. You're not old. Yeah. So what we'll do is we'll turn some time over to Colette now. Is that where we want to go, Tricia? It was with Colette?
I did want to thank Heidi for being here and Ginger from Salt Lake Chamber. They're awesome. We appreciate them so much. So I just wanted to give a shout out to them and thank you for being here, you guys. But thank you, Lisa, so much for coming. And let's turn the time over to Colette and she'll announce our presenters today.
Great. Thank you so much. I'm excited to have my coworkers and friends here to share some exciting information with you today. First, we're going to have Nan Anderson, who is the owner of Capitol Reefs Media and former Governor's Office of Economic Opportunity Outreach Manager, who is contracting with us to support a new special EDA grant for destination development. And so we're really excited to have her present. And then after Nan, we're going to go to James Dixon, the Director of Community Grants. And third, we will have Lance, who is the director over our Center for Rural Development and Targeted Industries, who has some information to share with us today about targeted industries. So with that being said, we'll just kind of go rapid fire from Nan to James and then to Lance. So thank you.
Everybody. Thank you, Colette. Thank you, Tricia. It's a great opportunity to see many of you here from rural Utah. Behind me, of course, is my favorite park, Capitol Reef National Park. Also, of course, it's the picture on our cover slide for our presentation here today about EDA and ARPA destination development grants. So I'm Nan Anderson. I am contracting with the Utah Office of Tourism, very excited to help them through some of these transitions and especially to focus on these destination development grants. It's been really fun to watch tourism pivot from exclusively in a marketing and advertising space into more of a strategic long-term view, which includes and focuses on developing our fantastic destinations throughout the state. So with that, I'm going to apologize right up front, folks. This is a federal grant, which means lots of detail, lots of crossing the T's and dotting the I's. So let me just say right up front, if you have questions, he wasn't able to join us today, but Kevin Blomquist, who is a fellow rural Utahn, he's out of Kanab. He is the future contact on this grant, and I'm just supporting his work as he grows into his new position. So that email is uotgrants@utah.gov. So who's eligible for this ARPA? That's the American Rescue Plan Act grant. Candidly, this is a new venture for the EDA. They have not really been involved in the tourism space previously. So we're very excited and we want to support this EDA foray into the tourism space by getting great projects throughout the state of Utah and utilizing these funds. Who's eligible? Cities, towns, counties, tribes, institutes of higher ed, but also importantly for you rural chambers, not-for-profit organizations, 501c3s, but also C6s are eligible to apply for these grants. We have designed 3 opportunities for these ARPA funds. You'll hear a lot more about those. I'll try not to bore you to death with details, but the first offering is a feasibility economic impact study. We will fund these up to $50,000. Very important to note, there is no match for these funds. Feasibility studies, pretty straightforward. Many of you have been involved in these before. I'll give you examples in just a moment of each one of these offerings. Next up is product development. And this is really exciting because it again encourages long-term and strategic planning at the local level for tourism development. Last, implementation grants. These max out at $25,000. This helps push a project maybe that had been waiting for just that little bit of funding over into the success column. So here comes the detail: feasibility and economic impact studies. The local area is able to study the viability and impact of new and existing regional tourism products. Both the feasibility and the product development programs, we will hopefully connect you with a vendor. We will have a list of experts in the tourism space that you were able to contract with to help you through this process. And again, this maxes out at $50,000, no match. We do provide technical assistance only. So an example of a project that a chamber could do in the feasibility space is, let's say Great Cedar City, right? I know we've got Chris on here. I don't know if Danny Stewart's on here, but if you wanted to look at and do a feasibility study about a particular aspect of your Main Street program, let's say you want to understand the gaps and the opportunities of what Cedar City's Main Street program looks like. You could apply for one of these ARPA grants and do a great plan on how Main Street affects the tourism economy in Cedar City. You could also look at things like economic impact. How many jobs are created? What are the sales like? And how much tax revenue are you generating? Again, a few more examples. Is it worthwhile for the city to purchase this site? Is our downtown a good fit for the Main Street program? My personal favorite, we've already conducted numerous plans and analyses. Now, how do we implement those recommendations? Next up, product development studios. These really are foundationally creative workshops to help bolster partnerships to address destination management. Now, what does that actually mean? Let me just say right up front, don't get hung up too much on the difference between feasibility studies and product development. We as a review committee are not going to focus too much on delineating the difference between those two. Suffice it to say, either one, we could actually propose a great project that could be eligible for either one of these. So the difference primarily between product development and feasibility is that product development would be something like a chamber might want to look at a night skies initiative. So for example, this is a huge new push in the tourism industry. We've got unbelievable night sky quality throughout, especially rural Utah. There is a network being formed throughout the state of Utah to connect those night sky opportunities together. A chamber in a rural area might want to look at how could that initiative, again, enhance the tourism economy. So all of these offerings, these are not for construction projects. These are not for capital improvement projects. You must relate any of these projects back to the foundation, which is tourism development. For product development studios, we max out at $50,000. This is, again, technical assistance only and no match, which is a major aspect of this program. To do, for example, a night sky project, you would work with, again, a vendor, an expert to create that vision, support the organization, and the strategy. It's intended to support regional projects and collaboration. And again, you could follow up on previously developed tourism strategies and how to implement some of those recommendations. A few more examples. There's that Dark Skies Network. You could look at a Main Street strategic plan, for example, a multi-county OHV trail network work group. Also looking at developing the arts, culture, and heritage tourism product. Last but not least, the smaller grant, the implementation. This provides funds to implement destination management and development activities. It could cover technical assistance, equipment, supplies, fabrication, but again, no construction. This maxes out at $25,000. Implementation grants cannot cover any activities that are eligible for our traditional co-op grant. Think of that as anything that really focuses on advertising and marketing exclusively. The review committee will not permit those type of applications. Again, these ARPA tourism funds will not cover construction costs. It won't cover personnel or administrative costs or O&M. A few more examples. You could look at how do you want to enhance your wayfinding in downtown areas. We can help you do the design. We can help you plan for the signs. What this grant cannot do is help you actually install the signs. There can be no ground disturbances with this implementation grant. This grant could help you look at a marketing plan for local events. It could also supply some equipment for events. Okay, here it is, folks, the real nitty-gritty. Okay, as any grant will require, we need a scope of work, a draft budget, and you need to identify outcomes or deliverables. The system that we're using is GoEO's Salesforce. So many of you will have applied for other grants through that system. Tourism is segueing over to that system as well. You see the list of the other requirements there. Again, these are federal funds. Sometimes we all know federal funds can be challenging. We believe this is an incredible opportunity for tourism. We are working, of course, directly with the EDA on these grants, and new ideas are welcome. Nonprofits do have additional requirements, not anything terribly onerous, but we are going to ask you for things like your articles of incorporation, your nonprofit status designation. All of the projects have to be completed by May of 2026. That's when the EDA deadline that has been provided to us. After I finish, I'm going to put a couple links in the chat so you can easily look at more detail here.
Thank you so much, Nan. We're out of time and we're going to go on to our next speaker, James. But like Nan said, she will put links in the chat. Again, I've dropped links above in the chat, and also contact information for Kevin, who can help with the grant. And I will also put information in the chat about your local outreach manager for your region from the Governor's Office of Economic Opportunity. And I neglected to introduce myself, Colette Cox. I'm the vice chair of the Rural Utah Chamber Coalition, and I also work as an outreach manager in the southern part of the state. So again, I'll put contact information for those from our office that can assist with the grant application, and we'll turn the time over to James now. Thank you. And thank you, Nan, so much. Very informative, and we're really excited about this grant for our rural chambers.
Thanks.
Did we lose James? Oh, there we go.
I'm good.
There
Here we
go.
are. Yes, in repeat mode. It's always very difficult to follow Nan Anderson in a presentation. She is truly a professional, and love working with her, and loved working with her for 3 or 4 years here at GoYo. And very, very pleased to be here with Chamber Group. I come with a little bit of a chamber background in Pleasant Grove, served as the president of the Chamber of Commerce there, and directly with the Lehigh Area Chamber for a number of years. So special place in my heart for you folks that work so hard for business in your localities. I hope you can see my screen. This is essentially just the landing page to our website that introduces an opportunity I think that the chambers need to be very, very much aware of. An opportunity for a new grant that's called the Economic Assistance Grant. The legislature has allocated $4.5 million for the Economic Assistance Grant, and it'll open on September 7th. It'll only be open for a couple of weeks, but this is a great opportunity to introduce what it is all about, and see if we can't get a little bit of creative thinking going in your chambers as to what kind of projects that might qualify for this particular grant. As you might be able to see here in our description, the grant assists Utah businesses that promote and support economic opportunity and provide services related to industry, education, community development, infrastructure. You can tell this is a very, very broad, almost all-inclusive description of what kind of projects might be eligible here. In my mind, the Chamber of Commerce is a perfect supporter of economic opportunity and provides services to industry and community development and so forth. So what kind of projects could a chamber do that would require some extra funding in the form of a grant? That is going to have to be determined by you, but we certainly invite you to connect with me in my office or with our outreach managers from GoYo and ask them the questions. Give them an idea of what you intend to do, what you'd like to do, what some of your plans are, and how you might need some funding. Let me see if I transfer that screen. Can you still see application processes and rules for the economic assistance grant? Or are you still seeing my landing page? Okay, gotcha. Great. Well, as you might see in the description, it says businesses that support. We recognize that the nonprofit Chamber of Commerce is also a business and is a qualified applicant. We want you to be aware of some of the things that might be required of you in an application. So take a look. Be prepared to describe how your project, if you're an applying Chamber of Commerce, provides a service related to Utah industry, education, community development, or infrastructure. How you promote and support economic opportunity. How do you contribute to job creation? Do you support the office's targeted industries? And you can see those there: advanced manufacturing, aerospace, financial services, life sciences, and so forth. Can you identify clear metrics that will measure success for your project? Do you have any ability to leverage any additional funds that might support the same project and enhance the overall financial contribution to that project? We're going to ask you to have a sound organizational and project budget, probably in a spreadsheet format that itemizes what your intentions are and what you will do with money. And then this needs to be a one-time project-based need. So this is probably not one that you will want to come after in phases. And this will be, what can we do? What kind of project can we put together one time, make a big bang, and support your local businesses? Now, I'm not going to give you any particular ideas. We'll let you formulate those ideas, and hopefully you can do so in the next 2 or 3 weeks, and very much encourage as many chambers as have plans to put in an application for this grant. So the limits on this grant are probably going to be, and I say probably because we're still developing these things, 50,000, 100,000, even upwards of 200,000. So that's a significant opportunity to fund whatever project you feel supports businesses in Utah. Thank you, Colette, for the time.
Thank you so much, James. And if we have any questions, I've dropped James's contact information into the chat. So please email him directly or call him, and he's happy to answer your questions. And again, I've also dropped a link to a map that shows our outreach managers for the Governor's Office of Economic Opportunity. And with that, we'll turn the time over to Lance to talk about our targeted industries.
All right. Thank you, Colette. First, a shout out to the outreach managers. They are absolutely amazing. We have Sherry Stevens up north, Lori out in the Duchesne area. Duchesne, you went to the Basin area. Janae Shaw, who is in Salt Lake, Tooele, in Utah County, Forest, over Joab, Millard, San Pete, Sevier, Paiute, Carbon, Emery County. And then obviously, you know, Colette, she is widely known by everyone as an amazing resource, and for good reason. Want to go over a few things today about targeted industry. So I do work with the outreach manager team, amazing team, and I also am over the targeted industries, which is mostly here in the Wasatch Front, but it does bleed into the rural areas for sure. But we'd like it to bleed more into the rural areas, and that's what we'd like to talk a little bit about today. So here are the targeted industries. It's kind of a fun little game I play when somebody asks me what I do and what I do at the governor's office, and I let them know that I'm over the targeted industry and Utah's targeted industries. And I typically will ask, and these will be like leaders in Utah that know a lot about Utah, have lived here their whole lives, and I'll ask them, hey, what do you think the 5 targeted industries? What are the most important industries to Utah's? What's the fuel that runs our economic engine? And I will get an average of 2, like they'll get 2 right typically. of these 5. So it's good for everyone to understand, you know, what are the most important. I mean, every piece of our industry is important. We do understand that, but a lot of these other industries are successful because these targeted industries are successful, whether they supply it, whether money generated from these industries, the disposable income that's generated from the workforce helps support these other industries in Utah, be it tourism and local shops and whatnot. But advanced manufacturing, aerospace and defense, with Northrop Grumman, Hill Air Force Base, financial services, big win. That's mostly in Salt Lake. Was our Goldman Sachs addition here many years ago now, but many people don't know the other things that are going on in financial services. We have more. So why Utah is such a great place to run a business is because of our low regulations. Very business friendly state. So we have industrial banks here because of that, and we have more money, more assets in our industrial banks here in Utah than the rest of the country combined. It's a little known fact with industrial banks here in Utah, and also the fintech scene is exploding, and with the legislature having a lot of foresight and trying to lead out on many aspects of that, whether it be DAOs or decentralized autonomous organizations. The sheriff node that they created to attempt to make sure that the citizens are protected. They've done a lot of things to be proactive and make us a good state to do business. So life sciences is a huge one, biotech, and then software and information technology. How these came about is not, we didn't just pick them. We did some study on that, and it's the next slide. What slide am I on here? So just so you know how we chose these, they needed, so ChemC Gardner and EDC Utah, they both did a study for us, and we do it every 5 years to make sure that we are concentrating on the right industries. So it needs to have a location quotient above 1.0. So that means that we average more employees in that industry than in the United States. So the percentage of employees in the life sciences in the United States is 1.0. So if we have more concentration in Utah than the United States has as a whole, then there's a decent concentration of that industry in our state. And so it would need to be above the United States average for us to even look at that industry. So we're looking at 5-year historic growth, 5-year projected growth also. So historic and future wages need to exceed median levels. Also employment, how many are employed here, obviously, like I mentioned. And with those, these are the industries that came out. There was a lot more that went into it, but I think that gives you a good idea of what we were looking for there. So on business.utah.gov, you can come here, the targeted industries. If you want more information about these, this is a good spot to come. Also with our resources, I know our outreach managers are constantly trying to get that information out, James Dixon. And here's a great landing spot. One great resource that I think that everyone should know about, we put a ton of time and effort and also dollars, as you can see, this industry support, up to $200,000 to trade associations. So our associations are amazing, with Utah Manufacturers Association, UAMI and UAMI for advanced manufacturing. We have Bio Utah, BioLive for life sciences, at Silton Slopes for IT, Utah Bankers Association for financial services, which is fantastic. And we also just stood up the Stennis Center at the U for FinTech. Another great, Ryan Christiansen is leading that out. But the Utah Aerospace and Defense Association is the newer one for aerospace and defense. Again, that was it was a little bit of a gap. UAMI was trying to cover, both advanced manufacturing and all of aerospace and defense, and it was just a little too much to handle. They were doing a great job, but it was great addition to have the Utah Aerospace and Defense Association being led out by Aaron Starks. But those are fantastic associations, and we leverage them a lot. So if you have more, if you have interest in getting more involved with any certain industry, if one of your areas you feel like it's primed to be inside of one of our targeted industries, which would be a smart way to go. I mean, and I tell that to parents also. They're like, well, my kid's going to college, but I don't know what they should go into. And I always tell them, if you look at our targeted industries, they don't appear to be changing anytime soon. That is the heart of who we are as an economy. And I would definitely, if they pick one of those industries and study something inside of one of those industries, they are going to be fine. I think that would translate directly into your area also. With some of these huge companies, with Northrop Grumman and Aerospace and Defense, life sciences and medical devices, with so many companies doing that. If your area can check some gaps, and I'll go to the next resource also that we were able to help stand up with Connects. This is a supply chain tool that we were able to bring to light that to Utah, and it's actually now going nationwide, that we were able to put a lot of dollars in to help get that stood up. This is actually a supply chain tool that you can go in and you can see gaps in the ecosystem where where supply chain is faltering. So that is a great place for economic developers and other areas to look at and say, if what do we need? How could I support Utah's economy, and what in the supply chain could we step in right now and have instant customers here in Utah and not need to ship it even far away? It's needed here in Utah, whether it be a machine shop, a tooling, some form of piece for the aerospace ecosystem, or the life sciences, whether it be a plastic, some type of tubing or whatnot. Great resources and a great piece of information for your areas. The next thing I wanted to show you is EDC Utah. We work very closely with EDC Utah. They also have some amazing information and resource here. If you go to edcutah.org and go to research, you can get even more information on, and Colette, you are seeing what I'm seeing. I always like confirmation that we're good, right? So here are the industry profiles. So if you look at, I'll just pick again, aerospace and defense, and you look in here, it'll give you information on so much more about each industry. And as you can see, I mean, we do have major, and these are major employers. So we do have major employers in rural Utah. We have TTM Technologies up north, along with BAE, that's number 2 is BAE. And then as you go south, we have ACT Aerospace, great company, and also Metalcraft Technologies down south. There are big players in these targeted industries in rural Utah, but probably the bigger piece that they do play are more in the supply chain, smaller companies supplying the needs of these larger OEMs. So really excited about how we can help support rural Utah, how this knowledge may help your planning for the future and your strategic plan for how you're building out your areas. But I would highly suggest that you understand Utah as a whole, Utah's economy, where our strengths are, and then you find out how you play a role in that, what your piece of the puzzle is in Utah's economy. So that's the information I have today. Really appreciate the time. If there are any questions, happy to take some time to answer those.
Thank you so much, Lance. And like I said, Lance, I've put Lance's contact information in the chat along with all of the links that he spoke about. So feel free to reach out to Lance through email or give him a phone call to ask any questions that you may have about our Utah targeted industries. They really are such an important part of our rural economies and very much misunderstood. And it is definitely a myth that these targeted industries are only located on the Wasatch Front. They are important employers throughout the state. So thank you, Lance. And next, we're going to shift gears a bit to our chamber highlight. And we've got Don Jennings, my friend from Kanab, here today. So happy to have you here, Don. And Don's going to talk to us about some of the highlights from the Kanab Chamber and some of the successful activities that you can repeat in your areas. So here you go, Don.
All right, thank you so much. Pat Guerrero, our president, would normally be here, but she's off at the Best Friends National Conference. And I also work for Best Friends. However, my wife is at the conference and I'm taking care of the dogs. So, and that's a team setup that works really well. At Best Friends, you might see the little signs behind me here. We have a partnership with Southern Utah University to deliver degree programs with a focus on animal welfare. I help create that content and teach 2 of the courses. That's my best friend's job. And then a ways back, the chamber, Colette, when you were still there, needed a new website, and that's a thing that I do. So I made a website, and shortly thereafter, I was asked to be the secretary. So that's who I am and what I do. And I'm just gonna, if I can, share my screen really quickly. Whoops, the host is disabled participant screen sharing.
No, let me get you, just a sec, let me go back. Give me 1 sec. Maybe, oh, you know, I think I can go right on your name. Right on
Well,
your picture.
while you're doing that, so it was described to me
Got it.
this as an opportunity to talk about what's going well for the chamber. So mostly the chamber has grown. So I would say growth is the thing that's the most important that's happened over the last year. I'll share just briefly. All right, you should see our website there, yes. All right, so we have a website. It's pretty straightforward. I think one of the things that has really helped with growth has been consistency. So if you looked at, for example, this was our events calendar in 2022. So we had our luncheons, and then we started having breakfasts at Perry Lodge in the morning, and then events. So that was the Raising Cane's Summit and a candidate forum, a couple other things. 2023, things just really expanded. So we have lots more events. The luncheons are still happening. The breakfasts are still happening, but ribbon cuttings, grand openings, partnerships with the Women's Business Center of Utah for events. We just had an event, Resource Roadshow with the Small Business Administration Utah office that was well attended and everybody enjoyed it. So I think growth there is a thing that's making a difference for sure. All right, hold on. I want to see if I can. The website's pretty straightforward. I didn't change the design too much. I just sort of made it something that they could manage themselves. So it describes the chamber, what it does and benefits. We have a little Facebook group for employers looking for employees. Our business directory has more than quadrupled in size over the last year. So we're at about 170 businesses participating now. And this is a pretty straightforward business directory. Everybody gets a little listing, and then the listing comes with a map to where they are, and it renders really nicely on mobile. The blog has been very consistent and appreciated by folks. And my wife and I just invested in the local newspaper, the Southern Utah News. So I am now half owner and unpaid general manager of the Southern Utah News. But they've been a strong partner with the chamber for a long, long time. So stories about our events, things that are coming up, all go in both places. So there's the blog, and then it goes on our social, and then also the newspaper providing support. Our resources page is the place you can go to get copies of any slideshows or information. So it's pretty straightforward. Mostly, I think the improvement for digital for us has been it's consistent, it's easy to use. Given that 80% of people access the internet on a mobile device, it renders really nice and clean on mobile, and that's really important. The newsletters right now, we have several hundred folks on our news mailing list. So it's not just our members. And astonishingly, we consistently get over 50% open rate on our email newsletters, which is much higher than the industry standard and continues to surprise me every day. The additional thing I think as far as value goes is just the growth in training. Ribbon cuttings and grand openings have turned into these sort of community events. They're very jolly and celebratory. We have the giant scissors, we have the great big ribbon. And then the other thing too that I was excited to start just recently was the Uzona area chamber just joined our chamber and we joined theirs. So I would say if there are any chambers out there that want to join our chamber, then our chamber wants to join your chamber. Just go to kanabchamber.org. I think that chambers joining chambers is a smart way for all of us to elevate the work that we're doing in each of our communities. So that's what's new and working well at Kanab Chamber. I wanted to see if anybody has any questions or thoughts about what it is we do or are doing, and I can let you know what's happening way down here in the southern corner. Any questions or comments?
I have a question. What more do you bring to the ribbon cuttings than scissors and ribbon?
That's it. So pretty much right now, the ribbon cuttings are such a new thing that what we try to do is just turnout, right? So initially, the first couple of ribbon cuttings, folks weren't really sure what they were. And then bit by bit, though, a sort of celebratory energy started to gather around these events, with everybody from previous ribbon cuttings showing up to new ribbon cuttings. And so it's really just an opportunity to bring, 20, 30, 40 people together out in the street on a sunny day to celebrate a new business. It's also an opportunity for officers of the chamber to speak, and inevitably the town manager, one of the commissioners will stop by. And so the real difference for us right now is that they used to not happen, and now they happen with a lot of good cheer and enthusiasm. So we'll take that progression. Absolutely.
That's awesome, Don. That's one thing that our chamber, we do them, but I love the idea of just making them a celebratory thing and having more people come for that reason. That's fantastic. But thank you so much. Kanab's awesome. Go ahead, Mark.
Tricia, I put in the chat, Dawn, can you tell us how you staff your event? I mean, looking at your calendar events, is it paid employees of the chamber, volunteers? How do you pull this off on the human resource side of it?
Sure. We don't have any paid employees. We have 4 members of a board of directors, and all of us volunteer. So our annual budget is somewhere around $20,000. About 13 or so of that comes in from membership fees, and we have a rack card program where we have 24 racks in the area, and businesses can pay to put little rack cards, and we keep that sorted, organized, and loaded at 24 locations. All of that's done by us. So and then this year we were able to get a grant for $8,000 from the Office of Tourism. And that's how this year we were able to provide the monthly lunches free for members, the monthly breakfast free for members, and to reduce costs or free for all of our events, training events and seminars. And then we also invested in some sort of to professionalize our appearance. We got some of the standard swag that you see at conferences. We've got a tablecloth with our logo on it, some pens, some signage, things like that. So we have no employees. It's just us doing our thing.
many members do you have? And then who at UOT did you work with on that grant?
I'm sorry, say that again?
How many members do you have? And who at the Office of Tourism did you work with on that grant for funding your meals and that?
Sure. So the Kane County Office of Tourism at the time, Camille Johnson was the head. I went to her with an offer, sort of an MOU where we said, we're asking for this much money in support of operations. We can provide for you these things. And so what we provided for the tourism office was mostly just elevation, emphasis in all of our marketing materials as a partner. In this last year, we did the same thing with Cade County and the city of Kanab and Perry Lodge, where I wrote up MOUs with each of them, and I said, in exchange for you providing what at the time I simply just pulled out of my head an amount of money to pay over our membership fee. So our membership fee is $100 a year. It's very, very minimal. And so the county, Perry Lodge, and the city pay $500 a year. And for that, they get emphasized on all of our social media and print. And then also they get to list all of the entities of their organization. So Kanab City gets listings for police and fire and all the other stuff. The county gets listings for all of theirs.
Thank you, Don. Will you throw your contact information in the chat? And then if anybody has more questions for him, go ahead and email him.
Absolutely, I'd be happy to.
Awesome. Thank you, Don. And now we're going to turn the time over to Ginger for our advocacy piece. And thank you, Ginger. And we'll let you go.
Thanks, Tricia. Appreciate it. I'll try to keep this quick. I know we don't have a lot of time, and I get a little excited about the political world right now. So first, if you have not heard, I'm sure you've all heard, President Biden was here this week, and it was really interesting. So Heidi and I are located right downtown on 200 South. He stayed at the Hotel Monaco, which is right across the street. And so because we're taller than the Hotel Monaco, we could look down on all of the happenings that were going on with President Biden, including snipers on the roofs and, you know, the lineup to watch the motorcade go through. So that was really fascinating. While he was here, he spoke to the VA at the VA hospital, and he spoke on the PACT Act, and it was the 1-year anniversary of the PACT Act. And if you aren't familiar with that, it was a bill that was passed again a year ago to help veterans who have been exposed to chemicals to open fire pits and how they can access some benefits through that. That it does several things, but that's the highlight. Secondly, we're watching the Congressional 2 district race, the CD2 race, replacing Congressman Chris Stewart. So as you all probably are aware, Congressman Stewart has decided to step down to focus on his wife and his wife's health. She's not well. So we have several candidates that are in the mix. We're watching the Republican primary, which will be September 5th. So keep your calendars marked for that. So the Republicans that are in place, Celeste Malloy, which was a staffer with Congressman Stewart, and he has endorsed her. We also have Becky Edwards. She's a Wasatch Front individual who was a legislator for many years. She kind of falls into the more moderate space. And then we have Bruce Huff, who has a long history with the Republican Party, and then Kathleen Reeby on the Democrat side. We also have January Walker and Brad Green on the more independent side. So there's quite a few candidates that have put their hat into the race. The third thing I'd like to talk about is this week was interim. So interim, for those of you who aren't up here watching, starts in May. It's the third Wednesday in May, and goes May, June. They skip July. We have August, September, and October. And this is the opportunity for our legislators to review studies, have state agencies come and talk about just topics of interest. And I was watching interim this week, so I'll share a couple of interesting topics that may be interesting for our rural folks as well as for those along the Wasatch Front. In the Federalism Committee, which was on Monday, they talked a little bit about the ozone transport rule. Who here has heard about this ozone transport rule? Is there anybody who's familiar with this? Okay, Kyle has with Senator Romney. Of course, you've probably heard through that. But what it is there is some good neighbor laws stating that you cannot take your pollution and move it from one state to the next. And the state of Colorado has been claiming that the Utahns are giving them bad air via our coal electricity plants. So the feds, the EPA came out and said, you got to clean these up, and we're going to give you a really tight timeline, and it's going to be really expensive, and that is on your dollar, which will raise our rates for our power. So the state of Utah went in and said, oh no, you're not going to do that to us. And they put some legislative funding in to sue the feds. And we are still watching how that will play out. But that is actually really important for our rural communities to understand what's happening with our coal-fired plants. I'm happy to answer any questions. You're always welcome to reach out to me to learn a little bit more about some of these issues as we dig into those. Secondly, this is another one that was heard in Business and Labor that they actually specifically reference rural communities. So I thought I'd share this with you. There is, if you take an ambulance ride, there is the cost of the ambulance ride, and then there's a supply charge. There are some insurance companies who are saying, no, we're not paying that supply charge anymore. It's now the cost, and you need to roll the cost of supplies into the ambulance ride. A cost of supplies for an average ambulance ride is about $250, but of course that varies. And that $250 average supply charge is along the Wasatch Front. You can imagine for those rural ambulance drivers or companies, that cost could be so different, and it could go up and down all the time. So that's something that we're watching. They did not make any motion into the committee. They're going to work it out with Commissioner of the Insurance Pike. Many of you probably know him as former mayor of St. George. They're going to work through him to see if they can come up with some solutions. One third issue, and so I'm not rambling on to you all, is non-disclosure commercial credit or commercial properties. So I'm going to try to distill this down just a little bit. It gets pretty complicated, but if you go and buy a house, your information is listed on the multiple listing service, the MLS. And so if you go and you can kind of see how houses are priced across the nation, realtors put that information into the MLS. It's commonly used. There is not a system like that for commercial property, and that's on purpose. There's 12 states that don't have that, and Utah fights to not have that for commercial properties. And I think Lance might be gone, but they talk about that in terms of recruitment in companies. They want to keep these commercial transactions quiet so that that doesn't hurt our competitive edge. There's a lot of things, a lot of issues into that. But where this gets important, and where it's important for you all from our rural chambers, the tax burden has shifted to residential property owners, and it hasn't necessarily shifted. It's just that there's been growth in the residential market and a decline in the commercial market. So that you probably have heard this, people, especially here along the Wasatch Front, they'll go to their legislators and say, why are my property taxes going through the roof? What is happening? Well, it's because of this growth and then this decline. So now there's a push to have commercial properties disclose where their sale prices, and so that we can have some equality onto the taxes. It's very complicated. It's a mathematical formula. I'll spare you the details, but that will specifically hurt rural businesses. If there is a shift in property taxes with residential to commercial, it's going to hurt small businesses in our rural communities. So I've been keeping my eye on that, and I can keep you updated. Again, it's a little bit complicated, but happy to share. Lastly, Trisha mentioned our boot camp. It's coming up October 27th. It's a 2-day event. It starts at 8, ends at 1. I've sketched out the plan. I've got speakers lined up, but we walk through the website. We talk about acronyms that don't mean anything except for the legislature. We talk about the money and where the money flows through the executive branch and the legislative branch, and how the governor does his budget, appropriations and how to get one. How to be a lobbyist. Let's see what else. Grassroots movements, how to approach your federal delegation, Economic Opportunity Commission and what that means and how you can get involved. And then we'll talk about hot topics, do a tour of the Capitol, do a tour of the lobbyist lounge, and bring in a legislator panel. So that's what I've got going on. Happy to help in any way. If you have questions for me, I tend to geek out on the politics. But I know not everybody does. So if you want to have a sidebar, I'm happy to entertain one.
Thank you, Ginger. And it looks like Colette put I think her contact information in there, that was such great information. This whole meeting is such great information. We really do so appreciate everybody coming. It's just a wealth of great stuff for our rural chambers. There's so many great things in the chat. We will take those and put them on our newsletter that will come out Tuesday. So everybody will have those resources. But yeah, thank you so much for being here, everybody. We really appreciate it. And we will get you an email out about the One Utah Summit and the Airbnb availability. And we will see you next month. So thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day. Have a great weekend. Bye.
Thank you, guys.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.